Well, the 2014 Congress returns from the midterm campaign trail, taking on several issues it postponed for months. And the president himself says he wants to move quickly on immigration, and that if Congress won't go it, he will go it alone. Senator Roger Wicker has just been elected to serve as the incoming Congress's chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. He's also a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Sir, good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Good to be back, Maria. Thank you.
Let me begin really on what you hope to accomplish come 2015. What's on your agenda?
Well, in 2015, first of all, we need to get the lame duck behind us. But in 2015, we're going to return the Senate to the great deliberative body that it's intended by the founders and that we had under Democrat and Republican leaders in past decades. We're going to actually take bills up on a Monday, debate them, amend them all week, work into the night, work on Fridays like other Americans have to do, and send legislation to the House and on to the president for his signature.
So based on what you've seen so far from the president and what you've heard from the president, how easy will it be to work together and actually push through legislation?
Well, it hasn't looked very good over the last 10 to 12 days. You know, the president seems to have chosen to get a message from people who didn't vote rather than from the voters who went to the polls and said, we want change in Washington. And I think this mention that you made about immigration, I think it's an example of that. Our laws are intended to be passed by the Congress, signed by the president, and worked through with consensus, no matter which party controls the White House, which party controls the Congress. We don't change immigration law by executive decree. And so the president needs to come back to us. We need to work this out. And I mean, you would think there's a massive emergency of deportation facing this country in November and December of 2014 that is causing the president to act. There's no such thing at all. What we have is a border crisis, and the president needs to help us work through that and secure the border and then go on to do comprehensive reform after that.
All right. I want to talk with you more about this, Senator, in terms of the executive order on immigration, as well as what we heard this morning from ISIS. So stay with us, Senator Wicker. More to talk with you about. Let's first, though, get a look ahead and see whether or not lawmakers will take up those hot-button legislative issues and actually move on some critical agenda items. Fox News' senior correspondent Eric Shawn joins us with that angle. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. The president's executive order on immigration granting legal status to 5 million illegals is expected this week. But it is only one of several controversial issues facing the White House and the new Republican Congress. A Supreme Court decision to hear a new challenge to Obamacare could again support or help scuttle that law. This, as one analysis predicts, Obamacare premiums will skyrocket for some by as much as 78%. And those stunning comments from Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber, calling voters stupid and saying the law was written to deceive Americans about it really being a tax, will likely land him in the witness chair at a congressional hearing. Supporters say the president sticks to his principles and beliefs. Others, like Investors Business Daily, are blunt. Defiance, bypassing Congress on amnesty, and the rest of President Obama's double-down response to the voters' rejection of his policies should shock no one. Never let up is one of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. In the 2014 November election, there was a stunning electoral judgment against President Obama and his policies. But instead, the president will go full frontal and defy the American people. No one should be surprised, and he's not done yet. He is predicted to defy his own party with that possible veto of the Keystone Oil Pipeline, expected to be approved in the Senate this week. That a Democratic effort to try and help Louisiana Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu in next month's runoff. Last week, the House approved Keystone, that a Republican move to help her GOP challenger, Congressman Bill Cassidy. The president, though, insists the pipeline will not help the nation's energy needs. He said this in Australia this morning.
I won't hide my opinion about this, which is that one major determinant of whether we should approve a pipeline shipping Canadian oil to world markets, not to the United States, is does it contribute to the greenhouse gases that are causing climate change.
Well, the president remains defiant, so too the Republicans, a familiar scenario despite the midterm results. Maria?
All right, Eric, thanks very much. And we're back now with Senator Wicker. Senator, what about that? Let's talk first about some of the executive orders and what's on the docket. Immigration. What can you do, particularly in the lame duck session, if, in fact, the president goes it alone on immigration?
Well, there's very little we can do. You know, every time we've challenged the president in court, we've won. I don't know of a single time the president has gotten the Supreme Court eventually to say he had this raw executive power. But I will tell you what it absolutely will do is completely give us a climate of distrust and confrontation, beginning at a time when really we are determined to return this Congress to listening to the people and actually producing bills to send to the president. So it would be the most incendiary thing you could do, and even at this point, I hope he will not do it. At some point, there'll be an appropriation rider that will prohibit the president from going forward with the enforcement of this sort of thing. I don't know if we can get that done during the lame duck because we don't control the committees. But after January, I do expect Congress to use its power of the purse and say the president may have said this, but we're simply not going to provide the American taxpayer money to enforce it.
Let me turn to ISIS and obviously the latest tragedy here, another beheading. What should the U.S. be doing?
Well, we are scheduled to talk about this again in December, in early December. The authorization that the Congress gave the president runs out about December 10th. The very idea of doing that was that the president would have the time over the election and while we were back in our states and districts to formulate a comprehensive plan. So we look forward to hearing the president's comprehensive plan, to working with him to develop that with the generals, with the admirals, with the senior leadership at the Pentagon, and then making a longer-term determination in December when this authorization for train and equip runs out.
And you have deadlines coming up in terms of funding, in terms of spending. What would you like to see in the realm of military funding as a result of these new threats? Well,
you know, we should have passed a National Defense Authorization Act months ago. The House of Representatives under Speaker Boehner did that. Under our Democratic chairman, Senator Levin, we passed an NDAA bill. Harry Reid wouldn't let it come to the floor. It's going to come to the floor and we're going to pass it, and we should address that once we work with the president on his comprehensive strategy. But let me also say this. We shouldn't be doing these things without debate and without amendment. And that's why it's so important that we take our appropriation bills up individually once Republicans get in charge. Say we get stuck on an issue and the president and the Congress are at loggerheads. We can set that bill aside, move ahead with the rest of the appropriation bills, and no one, not the president, not the Congress, would be accused of shutting down the government. We need to return to that sort of orderly process so the American people will not have to wade through a 3,000-page bill to find out what a line item is that affects an agency they're interested in. And
real quick, Senator, on Obamacare, both the president and Nancy Pelosi basically said they don't know Jonathan Gruber. We all know that he was the architect of Obamacare. What he has been saying recently, obviously just stunning, from the American people are stupid to adding racism in there. What's your take on these latest videos?
Well, Jonathan Gruber was part and parcel to hiding the facts from the American people, and for some reason he felt emboldened to say this in front of a crowd and in front of cameras. It's what we were saying all along, and basically this doesn't work for the American people. It doesn't work for the American consumer. There's a better way to get health insurance to Americans. There's a better way to return to the 40-hour work week, to repeal the medical device tax. We'll be tackling all sorts of things like that if we return the Senate to regular debate and we get to allow amendments. I think there's 60 votes even now to pass a repeal of the medical device tax. It's just that the Democratic leadership has not given the American people the right to see how their senators actually vote on this issue.
Are you going to vote on XL Keystone next week?
We are, and I think it's a close call. I think if Harry Reid lets the members of the Democratic caucus vote the way they want to, it will pass, and then we'll see what the president does.
Senator, thank you. We'll be watching.
You bet.
We'll
Should
see
be
you soon.
interesting.
Senator Wicker joining us.